The fruit is the last thing to grow on the fruit tree. You plant the seed, you water it, and the tree begins to grow really, really, really slowly. And the last thing you get is the fruit. The last thing. And so often I think that we feel this pressure that we need to get results fast, and if we don't get results fast, then we're failing. It's so false. Hello, welcome back to another episode. So I really wanted to talk about when you have been sitting on ideas for a really, really long time and you've not been doing anything with them and you feel really crap about it because you feel like you're failing, because you feel like you should be further along, you feel like you should have made more progress than you've made, and you just feel so disheartened by the whole situation. It feels heavy on you, it's weighing on you, it's maybe creating anxiety for you, it just doesn't feel good. And so many of us experience this when we have an idea to do something, whether it's to create a course or a membership or write that book or do anything. When we've got any ideas, sometimes we feel, especially when you're in business, sometimes I feel like this is pressure that you're supposed to be able to just get on and do it right away and just do it. But the reality is that sometimes just doing it doesn't happen that quickly. And when it doesn't happen that quickly, then that's when we start to feel like we're failing. And that's when we start to feel really terrible about everything. And in my experience, what I've learned is that sometimes I can have an idea and it can take bloody years for that idea to come to life. And that's okay. That is okay. So for example, like when I had the idea to create the Female Entrepreneur Association, I had that idea and I tried to get started with it and I stopped and I gathered dust and I went in circles with it for like 3 years. And then 3 years later, I got to a place where I was just like, I'm done trying to figure this out. I'm done and I'm ready to just go on this adventure. So I went on my mission success adventure and I just opened myself up to the possibilities of exploring what I could make happen. And then things started to happen. 3 years. And the same with my book. So when the idea first came for me for the book, to write a book, I remember waking up, I think it was when I was falling asleep at night, and I vividly remember I had a notebook and pen by my bed, and I got up and I started scribbling, and all these words were falling out onto the page, and it just felt like it was just flowing, and I just knew in that instant, I have to write a book. And so I got up the next day and I was so excited to write this book and to continue on this inspired writing. And I decided I was going to lock myself away for a week and I was going to write this book. Well, I locked myself away and I wrote. And I got to the end of the week and I realized that what I had written was absolutely awful. It had been painful, it had been a struggle, it had been so frustrating, and I persevered, but I knew in my heart that what I'd written isn't what I wanted to say, and it was just not good. But I continued to focus on the idea for writing a book, and every year I put it on my goal board as something I wanted to do. I want to write my book. And then that year would come and go and I didn't write my book. And I put it on the next year and the year would come and go and I didn't write my book. And I remember it got to 2015 and I thought to myself, I cannot put this on my goal list anymore for the year because I keep putting it on there and I keep failing. And I felt like such a failure. It weighed on me so heavy that I wanted to write this book, but I just wasn't doing it. And it drove me insane. And so I just didn't do it. I was just like, I'm not putting it on there. I'm just letting go of it. I'm letting go and I'm not putting it on there. And so I didn't. That February, I got an email from the commissioning editor of Hay House UK. She said, I've been following you for the past 6 months and would you be interested in writing a book with us? Hay House was always a publisher that I really wanted to write a book with. And I was like, what? This is the year I didn't put this on my goal board and now this is happening. And so then I got to work on the book and the book then eventually came to fruition. And I realized it took about 6 years to go from the first moment I had the idea to it actually becoming a reality and getting it out there. And I realized that if I had have written that book 6 years earlier, it wouldn't have been what it needed to be. I needed those 6 years to bring the idea to life and to make the book what it was meant to be. The original seed of the idea, all of those next 6 years helped me to bring it all to life. So I needed that time. And it's like that quote that says, the fruit is the last thing to grow on the fruit tree. You plant the seed, you water it, and the tree begins to grow really, really, really slowly. And the last thing you get is the fruit, the last thing. And so often I think that we feel this pressure that we need to get results fast. And if we don't get results fast, then we're failing. And I just think that it's so false. It's so false because in my experience, my ideas have always taken a while to come to life. Like when I have an idea to do something, it often takes me a good bit of time to bring that idea into my reality. And so often what happens is that people have ideas to create these things, amazing things, and then feel like a failure, and then completely just totally give up, as in like they completely just give up on it entirely, and then nothing ever happens with it, and then it just gathers dust, and like it never ever goes anywhere. It's almost like they lock it away. They just lock it away and they throw away the key to it. Because they have that sense of feeling like a complete failure and holding on so tightly to that feeling of failing rather than just letting it go. And it reminds me of this amazing story I've heard Oprah Winfrey tell so many times on so many videos I've watched. And she shared the story of like desperately wanting to be in the movie The Colour Purple. And she talks about how she read the book The Colour Purple and became completely obsessed with it, gave it to everyone that she knew, and then the movie was coming out and she auditioned for it, and she just was like, this is it. This is like all lined up. Like I'm going to get in this movie. I'm going to be in this movie. And she said that like a few months went by and she hadn't heard anything. And so she called up the casting director, and the casting director said, wait, you don't call me, I call you. And we have professional actors who are auditioning for this role. And so she felt like maybe it was because she was too fat. And so in her words, she said she went to a fat farm to lose weight. And she said that she felt so frustrated because she felt so all consumed by wanting to be in The Colour Purple. It felt so all consuming, and she just felt like it was just obviously a lot. And she said that as she was like running laps, she basically said like, I surrender all. And she just like started singing like that she surrendered all, and she just like said like she just wanted to let go of it, and she realized that she couldn't do it by herself, and she was hanging onto it so tightly, and she just needed to surrender it and almost like let go and let it go so that like it can do its thing. It can go and be out there in the universe, and like it can do its thing. And she said that then she was running on the track, and someone came out and said, oh, you've got a phone call, it's Steven Spielberg. And she got the part for The Colour Purple. And literally that story gives me goosebumps because it's so powerful when we realise that our ideas, this is how I feel like about it. I feel like our ideas come to us. And then I feel like if we hold on really, really tightly to them, it's almost like we suffocate them and we can't ever bring them to life. And sometimes I just feel like in order for an idea to actually come to life, we have to let it go, and we have to almost like allow the universe to just help us to make it happen, and to just, like for me, for example, with my book, I just let it go. I just had to let it go. And then Hay House just randomly got in touch. Like out of the blue, they just got in touch. So it's just, I just really, truly feel, and I have experienced it time and time and time again, when I have these big ideas and I realize I'm like twisted into them, I'm like twisted and wrapped around the idea so tightly, and I feel the heaviness of it, and I feel the frustration of it, and I feel all those emotions and feeling like a failure or all those things. I know I'm not breathing life into this idea, and I need to let go of it, completely surrender it, in order for me to then see how it can like come to life and how it's going to come to life. And so I know like maybe this is a bit woo-woo, but I have always found that this is so true for me in my experience. So there are 3 things I wanted to share with you that you can do when you feel like your ideas are where you feel frustrated because your ideas aren't coming to life. The first thing is, well, this is kind of more of like a kind of like a mental like reference of like something a way to think. So for me, this is a bit random, but I imagine there's like this orbit around me. And when I have ideas that I really love, I throw them into my orbit. Like they go into my orbit. And then they're like orbiting around me. And some of those ideas are like quite far out on the orbit, and some of them are really close to me. And I feel like my ideas hover around me, but they are a done deal. They're just done. And sometimes they feel like they're done, and then a year later they're actually not. And actually I feel like emotionally they're not aligned with me anymore, and they're not even there anymore, and they've gone. But like I have ideas that I've had hovering around me for years and years and years and years that still feel like they're hovering around me, and I just feel like they haven't come into fruition yet. But I still feel that they're there. And some of these ideas over time, like I've worked on, I've done a little bit on it here, and then it's just kind of lost its way, and then I've picked it back up a few years later, and then it's just lost its way. But I still feel them like spinning around me. Like I still feel like somehow at some point it'll come to life, and I just don't know when yet, and I don't know how, but I just feel like they're still there, and it's a done deal. Like it's just gonna figure out. So for me, for example, like with the book, it felt like it was a done deal. I just felt in every cell of my being that it was a done deal, that somehow, I didn't know how, I didn't know when, I didn't know how it would all come about, but I just felt in my bones that I was going to become a published author. I was going to write a book. It just felt like it was. Like it was. It was like it had already happened at some point, and I just could feel it. I just didn't know when it was coming about. And like for a lot of those years I did like get really frustrated and like was just so tangled up in the heaviness of it all. So like maybe see your ideas as like they're there, they're with you all the time, and they're a done deal. They are a done deal, and some of them are going to be like moving closer towards you and like ready to come to life, and some of them might not be ready to come to life yet, but you might have had that. Maybe you have that idea for a course and you get inspired. Maybe you have got inspired about it. You think it's wonderful, but maybe, just maybe, it's not ready yet. Maybe it's not going to be ready for 3 months or 6 months or 5 years. Maybe it's just not. But it's still there. And just the fact that you've had that idea and you haven't done it yet, or maybe you started it and you stopped it, doesn't mean that you failed on it. Doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It can still completely happen. It's kind of all part of this adventure. And I remember Esther and Jerry Hicks, or like Esther Hicks, I remember in her, I think when she's channeling Abraham, she shared this analogy that I really love and I always think of this idea of if you're in your car and you're driving from Phoenix to San Diego, you know that you can 100% get from Phoenix to San Diego. You know for every mile that you drive, you're getting to Phoenix, you're getting to San Diego. So even if you get stuck in a traffic jam, even if you reach a diversion, even if you go the wrong way, you physically know you can figure out and find the way to San Diego because it's a physical destination. You physically know you can get from Phoenix to San Diego. And she said that to think about your goals in the same way, physically think of them like they are a done deal. Like you have this idea, you have this goal, you want to do this thing. It's physically a done deal. Like as done of a deal, just like going from Phoenix to San Diego, just like you being able to go from your house to your town. You physically know you can go from your house to your town. Think of your goals in the same way. Even though you might not know how or when or anything like that, you know that you are going to get there. And I feel like for me, I feel like just trusting completely and surrendering are just so unbelievably powerful. It changes everything and it just opens the way for, oh my gosh, like for the universe to like step in and actually help. And it's just magical when that happens. The second thing, like I've already talked about with Oprah, is to surrender. So if you feel like you're holding on so tightly to the ideas of what you want to do and what you want to make happen, just surrender it. Literally, in the past, I've literally sat down and said, I surrender. Like, I surrender. I surrender this idea. I'm letting it go. And what will be, will be. What is meant to happen is what's meant to happen. And I trust that everything will happen in the right way at the right time. And just let it go. Let it go. And it's so powerful what can happen when you do that. And the third thing about this is to really listen to yourself. Like, listen to yourself. Listen to the way you feel. Like, if an idea isn't making you feel good, is it because you are clinging on so tightly to it? Is it because it is making you feel like you're getting this feeling of failing because maybe you haven't made the progress you want? And what could you do that it could like help you to let go and just make you feel better about it all? And what are the ideas that you really do feel called to work on now? What feels like it's coming through? So for me, I'm like always tuning in and paying attention to the ideas that I feel like are just ready. They're just ready. So for example, for years and years and years, I felt like I wanted to create a program that was like more intense, more involved, just a much more in-depth program. For years, I've sat on that idea. Years. And then to 2021, it just came. It's here. The idea is here. And I just felt that clarity and that momentum to work on it and to go for it. And so I tuned into that energy and I was like, it's now, I'm doing it. And we went all in and we did it. We made it happen. And at that point, we just took inspired action and we went for it really quickly. But it took blooming years to go from the seed of that idea coming through to me actually being ready and being able to like, almost, I feel like it's like I can have the idea, but then I almost have to wait for like something to strike. And then something can strike and it's like, it just slots into place. And then it's like, it's go time. And it was the same for my membership. It was the same when I created a freebie. It was the same when I started FEA. It's like I had the idea, but it just wasn't quite there. And then all of a sudden I just wait for this moment and it just slots into place. And sometimes I don't know how long it's going to take, which can be really frustrating, which is why you just have to be able to just let it go. And I feel like when you do let it go, it's just like, I don't know, you just allow something more magical to take over and just help guide you and to just help you to bring things to life. But I really just wanted to share this and talk about it because I do feel like sometimes we do have these ideas that we are going after and we do feel a sense of frustration. So we need to surrender. That being said, I do feel like it is about your ideas are with you for a reason, and I feel like your ideas are important to bring to life, and that's why you've got those ideas to not necessarily bring every single one of them to life, but like the ones that are really calling out for you to bring them to life. So listen to them, listen to what they're telling you, listen to what you're telling yourself, listen to what your intuition is saying, and if the time is right, look at, okay, what help do I need? What support do I need? What can I do now to go all in to make this happen? If you really feel like right now is the right time, like what support can you surround yourself with to bring those ideas to life? So just some things to think about if you have lots and lots of ideas and maybe you're sitting on some that you just feel frustrated by. Surrender, trust that they'll happen, and if you feel like now is the time and it's ready to act on some of those ideas, then look at what support and help you can get to just go for it and make amazing things happen. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the She Means Business Show, and I will see you next week for another episode. I hope you've loved this week's episode of the She Means Business Show. If you want more help and support to build a wildly successful business, then join hundreds of thousands of women and become an FEA insider. You'll get access to some of our amazing freebies, to our bonuses, to our giveaways, to so much good stuff. You can join me over at fea.link/insider to get all of the goodness. And I will see you next week for another episode of the She Means Business Show.